have your Bibles, turn with me this morning to Matthew. No, turn to Mark. Mark chapter 1. It says this of the baptism of Jesus. In those days, Jesus came from Nazareth to Galilee and was baptized in the Jordan by John. And as soon as he came up out of the water, he saw the heavens being torn open and the Spirit descending to him like a dove. And a voice came from heaven and says, "You are my beloved Son. I take delight in you." That is the heart's cry of every single Christian I've ever met. They want to make God smile. They want to be in that position where God is delighting in them. And today we're going to be talking about the Holy Spirit. We're going to talk about, last week we talked about how that he's in the world, that he's in us. Today we're going to talk about how he's upon us. And something that we have to come to grips with is that for the Holy Spirit to come upon us, there's a level of obedience that you and I need to act upon that will make God delight in us. Because you see, the Holy Spirit came upon Christ. Christ was God. There was an empowerment thing happening here with after his baptism, he submitted himself, he submitted himself to the authority that God had created in John. And by submitting to that authority, he was being obedient to the authority upon God, upon this earth. And out of that, he was going to begin his public ministry. And the Holy Spirit came upon him to do the work. It wasn't for salvation. He was God. It was for the empowerment of doing the work. And that is that same thing that we need in our lives. So we're going to look at that today. So here we go with a little story. This is the final installment of our series, Fully Engaged. One night, a wife found her husband standing over their infant's crib. As she watched him look down at her very first baby, she saw this face of a mixture of emotions. This disbelief, the doubt, the delight, the amazement, the enchantment, the skepticism. Touched by this unusual display and deep emotion from her husband, well, she reached around and just hugged him and said, "A penny for your thoughts." He goes, "This is amazing! I can't believe how anybody can make a crib like this for $46.50. Those who have had kids, yes, men don't always get it. Anyway, here lays one of God's greatest miracles, this beautiful child, and the husband is focusing on the crib. Do you know we're like that? We're like that husband when it comes to the things of God. Aren't we? We just looked at how God delighted in his Son because of his obedience. And it made him smile. Jesus said, I'm adopting you into this kingdom as believers. There's a sonship. We're part of the family. Which means if God smiled at him for obedience, he's going to smile at us for our obedience. And yet, there are times in our lives where we plain, simple, miss the boat. Turn with me to Acts chapter 1. I want you to see this because here's a crib moment that's happening. Now, we looked at this last week. And it says this. And while they were in his company and eating with them, he commanded them not to leave Jerusalem, but to wait for what the Father had promised. This is verse 4 of chapter 1 of the book of Acts. Of which he said, "You have heard me speak. For John baptized with water, but not many days from now you shall be baptized, placed in and introduced into the Holy Spirit." So when they assembled, they asked him, "Lord, is it this time you will reestablish your kingdom and restore Israel?" He said to them, "It is not for you to know, to become acquainted with, and to know what times brings our fixed years and seasons, which the Father has appointed by his own choice and authority and personal power. But you shall receive power, this efficiency, this ability and might when the Holy Spirit has come upon you. And you shall be my witnesses in Jerusalem and Judea and Samaria and to the ends and the very bounds of the earth. When he had said this, even as they were looking at him, he was caught up, and a cloud received him and carried him away out of their sight. And while they were gazing intently into heaven, and he went, and behold, two men dressed in white robes suddenly stood beside them. And who said, Men of Galilee, why do you stand gazing into the heaven? This same Jesus who was caught away and lifted up from among you will return in just the same way in which you saw him go to heaven. Okay. The Jewish holiday was Shavuot. It was leading into Pentecost. It was the celebration of first fruits. We have seen this in the series where God was walking around saying, look, I have provided. Look at my hands. Look at my side. Look at my feet. I have provided for your redemption. They have been standing in amazement that he's not just a spirit, but he was present in their midst. They saw that they had the hope of the redemption was there. He's proclaiming that this Holy Spirit is going to come upon them, that they might have the empowerment to be witnesses, to share what he has done with others. And yet, as he's drifting up into the cloud, they're gawking at the cloud. I really believe there's a little thing lost in the play of words here. That they're standing in a wonderment. And he's a little speck in the sky. He's just, wow, where'd he go? Wow. These two angels walk up to this crowd of guys. They're like, excuse me, what you talking at? What did he just say? Get busy! Here's the thing. You and I have this gift, if we could call it, of procrastination when it comes to the things of God. We window shop. We gawk. We stare into the window and watch all this stuff going on. And we get lost in this tinsel. You know, I was a little kid once. I stared at the toy store window. I'm supposed to be doing chores. I'm staring at the Sears catalog, the Christmas catalog. You know? I've been to Munich and to Nuremberg and the little shop windows and the little animatronic creatures and stuff. How you're supposed to catch a train and you're staring at this window going, wow, this is like so cool. And you're supposed to be about business. You're supposed to be getting on with it. There's an interesting principle here that I want us to come to grips with this morning. God will show up when you're moving.